So the previous problem actually leads us to a very special and unique situation. When we include government spending and taxes at the same exact time, and they're going to shift by the same exact amount, we are going to lead to something known as the balanced budget multiplier. So just as a refresher, we increase government spending by $100, we increase taxes by the same amount, $100, and that leads us to a net equilibrium change in our income of $100. So the same exact amount of government spending or taxes in this instance. So here, remember when we worked with this step by step, when we increased government spending by $100, this induced a $400 change in our equilibrium income. Then when we introduced $100 in taxes, this led to a $300 decrease in equilibrium income. And when we take the net change of both of these together, we figured out that our income changed from $4,400 to $4,500. So a net change of $100. And this is going to be known as our balanced budget multiplier, which tells us that equal changes in government spending and taxation are going to lead to an equal change in income. So when both of these happen at the same exact time, we will know exactly what happens to our equilibrium and aggregate income. So just as another example, if a $1 billion increase in government spending is financed by a $1 billion increase in taxes, GDP, aggregate expenditures, income, they're all going to rise by $1 billion regardless of our marginal propensity to consume. So our MPC could equal 0.5, 0.75, 0.8, doesn't really matter. It will always lead the same result. So this is why we note that our second multiplier that we're talking about right here, that the balanced budget multiplier is always equal to 1, meaning that we know exactly what the end result is going to be. And there's going to be a very, very sort of long way to show why this is going to be the case. And I'm going to go ahead and show you the long way to do this. And the long way is actually going to be a little bit complex, but it's also good to get a lot of practice to see the inner workings and mechanisms and channels behind everything. So let's go ahead and talk about the balanced budget multiplier. So here we take a look at the balanced budget. If you know that you have a balanced budget, you can immediately skip all of these steps right here and just go to the final conclusion or final solution. But if you don't immediately see it, then these are the steps that you would need to go ahead and take. First, we have an MPC. Let's choose a really high MPC of, say, 0.9, something that we haven't used before. So if we have an MPC of 0.90, what does it say about our multiplier? It says that our multiplier is equal to 10. So 1 over 1 minus 0.9 is equal to 10. So a very high spending multiplier because our MPC is very high. So how do we go about this? We go ahead and take each of these changes one by one, and then we're going to add the net changes with one another. So first we have a government spending increases of $1 billion. So just taking the numbers that are seen on the slide. So government spending increases by $1 billion. If government spending increases by $1 billion, is this affected by the multiplier? Yes, government spending is one of the variables affected by the multiplier. So our next step is to take this $1 billion increase in government spending, so 1 billion. We multiply it by our spending multiplier, which is equal to 10. And then our final conclusion that we get from this so far from this change is that we have an increase to 10 billion to our income. 10 billion to income. So equilibrium income increases by $10 billion. And this would be the final answer if government spending were the only thing that were changing. However, government spending is not the only thing that is changing. We also have taxes as well. So here, let's take a look at taxes increasing by $1 billion. So here, we're taking these two changes at the same exact time. If the government wants to increase government spending by $1 billion and exactly finance it with a tax increase of $1 billion, we want to see what happens. So remember that when taxes increase, it's going to be consumers like you and I who bear this burden. And how exactly do we bear this burden? If taxes increase, remember that our disposable income goes down, and that's going to have a twofold effect. It's going to affect our consumption, it's going to affect our savings. So consumption goes down and savings go down. But how much do each of these fall by? Remember, this is where the MPC and MPS equations come into play. There are helpful little buddies. So here, we need to go ahead and take our MPC, 0.9 in this case, multiply it by the change in income, which is minus $1 billion, so minus 1 billion. and this will tell us exactly how much our change in consumption is going to be. In this case, it's going to be minus 0.9 billion. So remember the equations. This is our MPC, this is our change in income, and the final result, when we multiply these two together, this will give us our change in consumption. Next, we take a look at the savings. What is our MPS? Our MPS is 0.1 here. Remember, these two have to sum to one another. If you don't know what the MPS is, remember MPC plus MPS has to equal to 1. We multiply it by the change in income, minus 1 billion. Don't forget the negative sign there, change in Y. And then the end result is going to be our change in savings. Here, 0.1 times minus 1 billion is equal to minus 0.1 billion. Here, this is our change in S. But we aren't done here just as of yet. Our final step is to go ahead and figure out the spending multiplier. So which one of these variables is affected by the multiplier? Remember, consumption is, savings is not. So the next and final step that we have to take a look at is how much is our equilibrium income going to change when consumption drops by 0.9 billion. So here, minus 0.9 billion. We multiply it by our spending multiplier, which is 10. We figure this out. And then when we multiply these two numbers together, our income is going to drop by $9 billion. So $9 billion decrease to income. So here, we can put a negative here just to make doubly sure. So we have a minus $9 billion to income if taxes increase by $1 billion. So if we took these sort of cases piece by piece, one by one, we would know exactly what happens to our income. But remember that both of these things are happening at the same exact time. This is why we have a balanced budget multiplier. So here, government spending increases by $1 billion, exactly financed with a tax increase of $1 billion. So when we go ahead and add these two together, the end results to our income, so a positive $10 billion minus $9 billion, what is the end result? We notice that total is going to increase $1 billion to our income, to equilibrium or aggregate income. And this is exactly what the balanced budget multiplier is all about. We know exactly that if these two are exactly the same, they're moving in the same direction, we immediately know what the end result is going to be. Our income is going to rise by that same amount. However, if you don't readily see this, then these are the steps that you would need to go ahead and take in order to show why this is going to be the case. And it's a little bit of a complex example, but as you get more and more practice with this, you'll be able to breeze through these problems fairly quickly. And we will see this once again in another chapter, so I would encourage you to go ahead, take a look at the long way, do it a few times in order to make sure that you get the end result that we see right here. So final conclusion, as we said before, equal changes in government spending and taxation will always lead to an equal change in income, and it doesn't really matter what our MPC is. We could easily change the MPC to 0.5, 0.25, and we'd actually get the same exact result. The only things that would change would be what happens with boxes right here. So the change in our incomes would be just a little bit different, but the total, the ending solution would exactly be what we have right here. We'll go ahead and finish up the full aggregate expenditures model by adding in our final variable and net exports and see exactly how that's going to change our equilibrium in the next video.